So, have you ever wondered why, even at the top of your game, you can feel completely drained? You know how success used to energize you. Now, perhaps it exhausts you. If you're crushing your goals but feeling empty inside, you might be experiencing a type of burnout that no one needs to talk really has been talking about, but this conversation today is for you. Now, this isn't the type of burnout where you collapse or you're trying to figure out how to perform. This is the kind of burnout where you keep showing up, you keep delivering, you keep being the leader everyone depends on, but you're quietly feeling disconnected from it all. You're hitting every target, you're managing every crisis, you're still leading every meeting, but you know, inside there's this persistent exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix, and this nagging question, why did I stop feeling excited about all this? When did that happen? So, what's really happening is that you're in a transition. You're moving from a lifetime focused on achievement and accomplishment to wanting and searching and needing something deeper, deeper meaning and purpose, true fulfillment. And that shift can feel rough when you don't understand what's happening. Now, we don't talk about this kind of burnout because, from the outside, everything looks perfect. You look successful. You are successful. But success and fulfillment aren't the same thing. And your soul is asking for more. I'm Dr. Geneva, for those I haven't met, and for over a decade, I've guided high achieving women through unique challenges in midlife. My 40 years plus of leadership and raising over $100 million and serving on various boards really helps me understand the pleasures and opportunities and challenges that you face in midlife. Well, today I'm launching part one of a three-part series on reclaiming your energy and purpose after 50. If you're experiencing this kind of burnout or stress or exhaustion in midlife. And now I want to remind you, if you want to dive deeper in your own situation right now, I've created a free guide called Reinvention After 50. It's a strategic plan that you can use. You can download it free and start dealing with some steps today. But I'll also share another fabulous resource at the end of this lesson. So, in this first episode, I'm going to cover the 5 signs that you might silently be burning out, even though you're at the peak of your success, and how you can recognize these signs and how they could be the first step to unburnout, reclaiming your energy and purpose. Now, these signs don't look like what you might expect. They're not about falling behind or failing to perform. Instead, they show up while you're still succeeding. That's exactly why they can be easy to miss. So let's get started. Sign number 1. So with this sign, it's all about perpetual exhaustion. I remember one client, a CEO, telling me she woke up more tired than her kids, even after a full night's sleep. She said, it's like my battery is permanently stuck at 10%. Now, this isn't just, I need a cup of coffee, okay? This is a deep, bone weary exhaustion that sleep doesn't seem to be able to fix. You wake up feeling tired as when you went to bed. But you push through your packed days. You leading teams, you closing deals, you're managing boards. But by 3 p.m., you hitting a wall. You craving sugar and you just want to collapse. The kind of exhaustion where even enjoyable activities feel like a chore and things are foggy, and it makes it hard to strategically innovate or even connect with your family after work. Now, you've always been energetic and driven, so this new constant fatigue, it's confusing and frustrating. And so this isn't just exhaustion, it's your body telling you something needs to shift for your energy to be sustained. Now, this exhaustion often leads to something even more concerning. And that's sign number two. So, do you remember when your work, your cause, or even your hobbies, generally all the time, really lit you up? But now, somehow, there's this loss of joy in these passions. The spark feels dim or completely exhausted, and you're going through the motions. Now you're still successful, you're getting the results, but the inherent joy, that deep satisfaction feeling, that feeling of purpose that once fueled you has faded away. And it's not just about work. I remember years ago, I found myself looking at my family and my career, and all was thriving and successful. But I find myself asking, is this all there is? The hobbies that I loved once, like photography, begin to feel like obligations. Now, that feeling was a huge red flag that I was experiencing this kind of midlife burnout. The projects that used to excite you now feeling like obligations, and the weekends you look forward to, now are just more like to dos. You might even feel this sense of apathy or indifference towards things that once were central to your identity and happiness. And now they're leaving you wondering too, is this all there is? Now, this loss of joy isn't a failure to appreciate or be grateful. It's really a compass pointing to you to, hey, my true passion is lying out there somewhere. Now, this loss of joy does trigger another sign that can catch us high achievers off guard. And this sign number three is feeling like an imposter despite the achievements. And this is this, am I good enough whisper? It's a subtle, sneaky sign. You've got the resume, the titles, the awards, the track record of success, literally decades of proof of your capability. Yet there's this nagging voice that's whispering, am I good enough? Are people going to find me out? You might even downplay your accomplishments. Maybe be a little scared about being exposed as a fraud, or constantly striving for more validation or approval, even when the external evidence clearly says you're a powerhouse. I remember that moment in my own career when, after dedicating years to United Way, fighting through glass ceilings to become the first female president of a multi-million dollar United Way at merging organizations and really leading in that space. The mayor and philanthropic leaders asked me to step away and launch a national model startup from scratch. It was completely new territory. It was a blank slate, but it was a career changing opportunity. But even with decades of fighting and leading and running massive organizations, a whisper of doubt kept creeping in. Can I do this? Am I truly capable of building something from the ground up that's never been done before? So that was my imposter syndrome, loud and clear, even when every part of my history screamed, yes, you can. You can do this. This imposter syndrome can drain our mental energy and prevent you from, finding your rightful place and continuing and questioning every judgment, every decision that you make. And the feeling can be incredibly disoriented, even when you've consistently broken barriers and led at the highest levels. These things happen, and we kind of wonder, well, what's going on? Because we're in this midlife stage where we've accomplished so much. We ain't in our 20s, we ain't in our 30s trying to discover ourselves and always constantly proving. We've got a track record. We've got a record of accomplishment. But that imposter syndrome still be creeping in, asking us, whispering. So listen, if you're recognizing yourself in any of these signs, I just want to remind you, I've got that free Reinvention After 50 guide that has a self-assessment in and can help you identify exactly where you are in this process. And when we battle these internal doubts while maintaining our external performance, it often shows up in how we interact with others, which gets us to sign number 4. This short temperedness, perhaps this irritability that we experience. And this sign often shows up in how we interact with others. You find yourself more easily irritated, and there's these frustrations, and you can be working with colleagues, but you feel less patient, or perhaps even a bit cynical, like, what's going on? Will this ever work? And you feel this cynicism about your work or the people around you. And, things that once rolled off your back now trigger this sharp reaction. You might find yourself snapping more readily, feeling perhaps a low grade resentment. You're not full blown resenting, but you feel this kind of little, resenting going on. Or perhaps you're adopting this what's the use attitude towards challenges. Now, this sign is insidious, sneaky, because it often impacts our relationships and how we show up, even when we think we're trying to maintain our professional composure. Now, I experienced this myself during that very same startup venture I was telling you about. About halfway in, while I was hitting benchmarks and making a real difference with this new national model I was telling you about, I started to become a lot more cynical and, really thrown off by minor things and surprisingly short tempered. The fuse that I had, which particularly was pretty long, my fuse was gone. The pressure, the exhaustion, it was just really catching up with me. But I want to tell you that looking back, there also was a significant physiological component to what was happening alongside of this immense professional pressure. And later on, I discovered I was navigating perimenopause, which for many women in midlife can bring its own set of intense, often confusing changes to mood, energy, and patience. So while I was hitting professional strides, my internal experiences were battling against this unexpected emotional fragility. Uh, now, the word I want to say is being fragile, fragility. What is that word? Anyway, I was being fragile. I was in this emotional state. I found myself highly vulnerable and fragile. And this for me was such a powerful lesson that these midlife shifts, they aren't just about career or what's happening in the workplace, but they can be deeply physical and impact how we lead and live. And that's why being aware of these signs is so critical, because we often misread them and we don't understand that we can be successful and continuing to do all of these things. But what's happening in this stage of life is different, and we don't really have a playbook for it. And this irritability that I experience, this short temperedness, being irritated by the slightest things, it wasn't truly me. And if you're experiencing it, this really isn't your true nature. But this chronic stress and undressed burnout, this that's affecting our emotional resilience and our relationships, is affecting us and does impact our overall sense of professional grace. So, this emotional volatility is often compounded by the final sign I want to talk to you about that catches us trapped in this cycle of what's going on and depletion and burnout in midlife. And this sign number 5 is our inability to turn off. Even when we're physically away from work, your mind is still racing. You might be staring at the ceiling at 3 o'clock in the morning, replaying a meeting or strategizing for next quarter or worrying about a project. And this is the inability to mentally disengage and truly rest. Your phone is always within reach, and the line between work and personal life has completely blurred. And this constant mental on switch means you're never fully present, you're never fully recharging, and it keeps you locked in a cycle of depletion, contributing to the very exhaustion you're trying to escape. Now, this constant mental grind doesn't always allow for us to rest at all. I had a client who, after years of this, realized, well, she told me, she said, I haven't had a single unplugged moment in a decade. And we really talked about that a lot. And once she recognized that this is a sign, this is something that happens during midlife, she started creating boundaries that changed her brain chemistry and helped lead to deeper sleep and re-energize her creative thinking. And so these are the signs that really face us as silent midlife burnout for high achieving women. That perpetual exhaustion that won't quit, that loss of joy that used to light you up, the whispers of imposter syndrome, despite your incredible achievements. the growing cynicism, short temper, and that relentless inability to turn off your brilliant mind. So, if you found yourself relating to any of these signs, nodding, let me know what sign resonated most with you in the comments. And here's what I want you to do, though. I do want you to take a deep breath and know this: you are not alone in this experience. You are not failing. In fact, what you're experiencing is often a powerful signal for women like you who have built careers, raised families, led movements, and continuously delivered excellence. This feeling isn't a sign of weakness, but a sign of untapped potential. It's your deep inner wisdom whispering that your current path, while successful, may no longer be fully aligned with who you are becoming in this powerful midlife chapter. It's your soul yearning for more. It's not a crisis, it's an invitation to reinvent, to change, to take the next step. It's your mind and body telling you to intentionally design your next act, one that's truly aligned with your purpose, your energy, your legacy. And these signs are telling you it's time to leverage your immense wisdom, not just endure it. Okay? But now the bigger question you might be asking is, okay, but why is this happening to me? Why is this? And what are the actual roots of this burnout? Well, that's exactly what I'm going to cover in part 2 of this midlife unburnout series. We're really going to dive into what's happening at this stage of life, the physical, the emotional, and the psychological shifts that no one's prepared you for, and why understanding this midlife transition is the key to transforming your energy and purpose. Okay. And for those of you in my YouTube family, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell to capture part 2. I don't want you to miss these breakthrough insights that explain why this is happening and how you can address it at the root level. And listen, if any of you are thinking or feeling, this is exactly what I'm experiencing and I need help figuring out my next steps, I want you to book this Midlife Clarity Power Hour session where we'll talk about what's happening in your journey. And I'll give you this customized roadmap that where I'll help you figure out 2 to 3 action steps to really start reclaiming your energy and purpose. And also, don't forget that free Reinvention After 50 strategic action plan. The link is right in the description. And again, this guide includes assessment tools that'll help you identify exactly where you are in this unburnout process and whatever you're going through. And can help you with your next steps. So I'm hoping this has been helpful for you. And please share this video, this conversation with another high achieving woman so that we can spread the information and we all can hear what we need to hear so that we can be as powerful and as influential as and impactful as we can be, and we actually live the life that we were meant to live. So that concludes the lesson for today. And I want to see what questions you might have. How's everybody feeling and doing right about now. And please, yes, put the sign in that might resonate with you the most um, in today's conversation. Yes, and one of the comments about success and fulfillment are not the same. And it's interesting because as we move through our life stages, that's when we'll find that there are real differences. What we looked for in terms of success in our 20s and 30s get to be different when we hit that 50 mark. So we're looking to achieve, to climb up that ladder, to be, to get every milestone of achievement, the awards, the recognition, all of that happens. And we grind in it too. We're grinding it, we're moving 20s, 30s, 40s. As we begin to hit midlife, there's these feelings that come up when we ask ourselves, well, is this all there is, climbing this ladder? Um, is this all we need to be doing? Am I going to climb this ladder for the rest of my life? Not only in career, but in terms also of our family and our personal relationships as well. We begin these questionings. Again, this is normal for this stage of life, our 50s and our 60s, when we're in midlife. We're shifting from the need for accomplishment and achievement into this phase of self actualization or finding that fulfillment and that greater purpose. And being aware of the shift and what's happening, not only mentally and emotionally, but also physically, the changes that are happening in our body, all of that is affecting us in midlife. And this is why I wanted to have a conversation about burnout from a different lens, that lens of being in midlife, because the signals that we get, that we typically see as burnout in our younger years. Yes, we feel the exhaustion. Yes, we can feel empty. But why is that happening? And that's the signs are different. It's oftentimes a signal. It's not that you're a failure. It's not that you're not successful. And it's like a double-edged sword because you can miss it because you're being successful. You are successful. You could miss it. But the other side of it, it's signaling to you, perhaps you need more. Perhaps it's time for a new chapter. Perhaps it's time to leave that gig that you've been in and go do something you've always dreamed of, or something that gives you more purpose and fulfillment. And this is what happens. And along with that, for any woman over 50, we're experiencing physical changes in our body in terms of our weight, what our hair might be looking like, the relationships we're having, just a whole series of physical and relationship changes that we're going through. So that's why I want to, and there's no playbook really for this phase of life that I know I found. I grew up, my mom was very successful. The women around her, they were. But when you retired, and it was at an early age than we retire these days, that was really it. And so, how we can continue to thrive and find purpose and joy as we continue to live, and we're going to live much longer. Well, I certainly appreciate all of the comments and questions that we have. And you know what? I'm going to see you next time. Now, I want you to remember, okay, I want you to remember that are we are going to get into part 2 next week. So please stay tuned for the series, because next week we'll be diving into the emotional, the psychological, the physical, what's happening at this stage of life, and what that burnout is looking like. And this is essential for you to know what to do, which will be part 3. So thank you for being here. Love you all. See you next time.